Hi, and welcome to History's a Blast. It's October in Pennsylvania already, and that means that another camping season for us is about to come to a close. We have one more trip planned next weekend to the East Broad Top Narrow Gauge Railroad Historic Site and the annual Friends of the East Broad Top reunion with all kinds of activities, museums, walking tours, trains, train rides. We'll be covering all of that and other things. So we want to do a quick update where we've been, where we're going. Back in the spring, I mentioned that we were going to be staying closer to home this year because of circumstances. Well, not only did we stay close to home, but other circumstances curtailed the length of some of our trips. So we don't have as much video upload production coming up in the winter months, and I'm going to probably slow down the frequency of uploads to one every 2 weeks if necessary, just to get us through into the spring and the resumption of the 2023 camping season. Now, we do have some trips coming up, videos from those trips up to Cook Forest State Park and its environs, and over a little bit farther northeast in the Sheffield, Pennsylvania area, which is the heart of the Allegheny National Forest. Allegheny National Forest. Yeah, I had to pause there. And we stayed there for about 4 days, 4 nights, I should say, and we took a side trip up into southwestern New York, and look for those videos as well. They'll probably be coming to you in the November time frame, and the East Broad Top stuff will be starting in the December time frame, I'm thinking. And we have other things coming up, maybe some Meriwether Diary episodes with tips and tricks that we've come up with this year, problems we've experienced. So hope you'll continue to stick with the channel, and we'll see you on the road. We're just about to leave on our last big camping trip of the season, 2022. It's mid-August. We're going to head off for 2 weeks in northwestern Pennsylvania. First stop, Cook Forest State Park and its historical old-growth hemlock grove. So come along for the trip. Here's a close-up of one of our spiffy new magnetic door signs for the YouTube channel. I didn't really want to do this, but Mrs. History of Blast talked me into it, and it's paid off. We've had some nice inquiries, and a couple of subscribers saw us parked at the Bull Run and came up and talked to us. So if you see the sign, come up and say hi. So we're off on the road again with GeoPro Meriwether. Purchased by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1929 from A. Cook Sons Lumber Company, the 6,055-acre Cook's Forest State Park abuts the Clarion River and is the first such park purchased in Pennsylvania to preserve a natural landmark, in this case a remnant of old-growth white pine and hemlock forest known as the Forest Cathedral that had survived a century of lumbering by John Cook and the company formed by his descendants on the surrounding landscape. The story of how this park came to be describes in microcosm the emergence of the conservation movement at the beginning of the 20th century, and is the subject of an excellent Wikipedia article. There'll be a link in the description to that. Several stands of old-growth forests, or old-growth-like forests, totaling about 1,500 acres, exist throughout the park. Now, old-growth forest is a term used to describe forests as they existed at the beginning of European settlement and have been allowed to evolve on their own without any human interaction since. An old-growth-like forest, or old forest with old-growth characteristics, have been allowed to regenerate on lumbered-over landscapes since the early 20th century or earlier without active management, and have somehow come to look a lot like a real old-growth forest. And we'll hike through 1 or 2 of those while we're here. We'll also visit a surviving example of a state forest fire lookout tower and the nearby scenic overlook Seneca Rock, named for the Iroquois nation that inhabited the region before the Penn family arrived. and was ironically featured in the 1946 Cecil B. DeMille film Unconquered, set during Pontiac's War and starring Gary Cooper and Paulette Goddard. We're driving north on Pennsylvania Route 36 from exit 78 on Interstate 80, and the campground entrance is about a mile beyond the bridge over the Clarion River and Park Office. But we bore right on Forest Road by mistake and had to drive about 3 miles before finding a place to turn around. No matter, it's a gorgeous drive. We'll be setting up Meriwether at Ridge Campground, but the park also features a separate campground for organized groups, as well as a number of rustic cabins built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the mid-1930s. Ridge Campground has just over 200 sites, 95 of which have 50 or 30 amp electric service. And we thought the speed bumps at the entrance to the actual camping loop area were a bit too abrupt, but maybe that's just us. Only the 20 or so sites with full hookups have water, and they seem to be booked on weekends for months in advance. We got one of a few remaining full hookup sites for 2 weeknights about 6 weeks in advance. There are 8 potable water spigots near the roads throughout the campground, but we recommend stopping to top off your fresh water tank at the drinking water spigot near the dump station before going to your site. This is our campsite number 74 at Cook Forest State Park. Ridge Camp is the name of the campground, and it's right behind the bathhouse, which has toilets, and it's one of the few full hookup sites. There's water and 50 and 30 amp service, and there's the sewer hookup there in the near distance. We're here at the Environmental Learning Center, and there's supposed to be some displays inside that we can go and look at that are of an historical and environmental historical nature. And I think we'll go over here to this kiosk, this little information kiosk, and take a look at what they have to show us as well. This is an overview of what they call the Forest Cathedral, which is a very important surviving stand of old-growth hemlock, and maybe white pine too. Here's a map of the trails. We're going to take one of the trails through the cathedral. There's a nice display on a century of conservation history in Pennsylvania. Goes back to 1928. First park created to preserve a natural landmark. Around here they've got a nice orientation of what the eastern white pine and the eastern hemlock in the old growth forest looked like. Very interesting comparison standing next to Independence Hall in Philadelphia. I tell you, these things are huge. They are huge, and when you see them, it's amazing. Okay, let's go on into the Environmental Center. These beautiful log cabins were constructed by the Civilian Conservation Corps folks. This might have been an office, or it could have been a dining hall. Pretty big building, beautiful fireplace looking in there. Is that a sawmill mechanism, Debbie? A shingle mill. Boy, that looks like something out of the Perils of Pauline, doesn't it? Whoa. And we're in luck. It is open. Log cabin in. The old floppity slam screen door. I didn't either. And Pennsylvania Archaeology Month, October 2021. October is a good month to go out and start going out into the woods. Year-round activities at the park. Here's the classroom setup. Oh, look at these tables and chairs in here. This is amazing. These might have been left behind by the CCC for dining area. Look at this big tripod. For what's it for? Does it say what it's for? No. There's a sign, but it's not. Oh, point to it, Debbie. Show them how observant I am. There it is. It's a stump pooler. My God, oh, look at that. Okay. Yeah, I think me and about 10 other guys could probably pull that stump out of the ground. Not hardly. There's the sign that shows you how they did it. Wow. Here they are in the woods back in the day. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that the guy in the frock coat with the straw boater was not one of the loggers. They got their kids and their wives with them too. Look at that. That's neat. There's a forest tower, standard Pennsylvania watchtower. This is a neat room. Biggest squirrel I've ever seen. Game birds, well, not a red-tailed hawk and a hawk, the Cooper's hawk are not game birds, but the pheasant is. Yeah. Look at the size of this porcupine over here when you come over. And there's a little bear cub. Great horned owl. Bobcat. Looks like it hadn't been fed in a while. A white-tailed deer fawn and a snowshoe hare. That's an angry-looking critter. Deer, white-tailed deer. This is a neat little display. They've got an old tree here with the rings, and look, it's George. It was already a mature tree in 1789 when George Washington was elected president. And in 1914, several years before it was cut down, it was the 1914 first ship through the Panama Canal. My goodness. That tree was probably close to 250 years old when it was cut down. At least 250 years old. My goodness. There's that fireplace we were looking at. Apologize for the lighting in here. It's a little bit glary. Okay. Go on, and we're going to go on and hike the one of the trails. Now on the trail up behind the log cabin inn is a memorial fountain, and we're going to go check that out. You can see it back through there. Eastern white pine, dedicated to the Mohawk chief. Swamp in the tree, and a tree of peace ceremony in 1995. Okay. Cook Forest is a national natural landmark. Water is not treated or tested for drinking. Didn't used to be a problem. Erected by the Cook Forest Association in the year 1950 to honor citizens who by leadership, labors, and gifts made possible the preservation of this virgin white pine forest for the enjoyment of all the people. I grew up in the 60s, stepping on bumblebees, stubbing my toes on the sidewalk and skinning my knees. I'll take a chance on the antibodies being there. This is the Sawmill, and it was built in the 1940s to mill all the dead wood that was lying in the park from the chestnut, mostly chestnut, from the chestnut blight of the 1920s. And when they finished cutting all the dead wood, they closed the sawmill down, and it was a sort of a gift shop and a meeting center. And then in the 1980s, they added the Sawmill Theater to the end of it. And they do summer theater productions in here. And we just missed the last weekend. We got here a week too late. But we're here to take the Black Bear Trail, which goes into the cathedral, to the old growth forest. So let's go up the Black Bear Trail. The Black Bear Trail crosses the gravel road. It's access to what's called the paved trail, which what used to be called the handicapped accessible trail, but they couldn't keep it up to the standards that the ADA wanted, so they had to stop calling it accessible. It sort of still is, according to the folks I talked to here. And originally before that, it was called the CCC Interpretive Trail. So, in any way, it's going to be interesting. But here we're going up the Black Bear Trail through this nice little meadow. Firewood that hasn't been used since it was cut a long, long time ago. Well, pardon my heavy breathing. I'm not in very good shape. And there's a slight grade here. There's a sign on the tree here that says, "Do not remove firewood. It's to be reused by the annual French and Indian War encampment that they have here." That would be something to come and see. The trail is blazed by yellow blazes, just like the Appalachian Trail with its white blazes. One means continue straight ahead, one over the other. Two blazes indicates there's a turn coming up. Looks like shelters left behind by the reenactors for the encampment, the French and Indian War encampment, that is. And up there, doesn't look like that was left behind by the French and Indian War encampment. And it looks like parking for the handicapped accessible folks that are driving. And there's the paved trail. This is where we want to go. We want to get on the paved trail here. This is the sensory trail that the lady at the gift shop told us about. The only paved sensory trail for people with disabilities in western Pennsylvania, built in part with funds by the Friends of the Cook Forest. Trail accessible for all. 0.2 of a mile long. You folks are doing good work. I was talking to the lady at the visitor center, or at the shop down there, about the trials and tribulations of the Friends of the Cook Forest trying to deal with this trail. Wish you great luck with it. You'll need it. Now the nature area is left to its own. So whenever there's a fire or a, God forbid, or a windstorm or a deadfall, it's left in place just like it would have been before human interaction. And we're looking at an old oak tree. And next to it, an old hemlock. Actually, it's not very old. It's younger than the oak tree. We'll see some really big monsters, some old grandfathers. See that they have braille on the signboards. Very nice. Look how it twists. Well, we made our way back to the start point, and we're going to head off for some further trail adventures. That's it for this time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll take time to view some of our other ones.